Elena Hayes stepped gingerly into the lavish VIP mountain lodge, her worn hiking boots dragging her across the polished marble floor. Her attire was a stark contrast to the luxury surrounding her, frayed cuffs on her faded jacket, a simple backpack slung over her shoulder, and her hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. Yet, it wasn't the opulent surroundings that made her pause at first, but the fragrance of rich pine and rare incense intermingling with the soft strains of a live string quartet. As she moved further into the space, the weight of curious eyes trailed her every step. Conversations hushed momentarily, then resumed in discreet whispers. She caught snippets, words like backpacker and out of place floated through the ambient chatter, wrapped in an unmistakable tone of judgment. A well-dressed woman in the corner let out an exaggerated scoff, turning to her companion with a smug expression. "Did someone forget to tell her this isn't a hostel?" the woman quipped, her voice dripping with disdain. Meanwhile, Nigel Carter, the lodge's concierge, observed from his polished mahogany desk with an air of icy skepticism. His sharp gaze swept over Elena, lingering disdainfully on her attire, as though each scuff on her boots and fray in her jacket offended the carefully curated elegance of the lodge. Two other guests, a couple perched elegantly at the bar, threw her scornful glances, their dismissive murmurs punctuated by their laughter. "Perhaps she's lost, or worse, thinks she's a guest," the man jested, his voice loud enough to draw a few amused glances from those around him. Elena felt each judgment like a prickling breeze against her resolve, yet she held her head high, determined to savor the moment despite the unwelcome scrutiny. Nigel Carter watched as Elena hesitated in the middle of the lounge, her presence akin to an ink blot on a pristine canvas. He straightened his tie, adopting an air of polite condescension as he approached her. "Good afternoon, miss," he said, his voice smooth but lined with veiled derision. "Are you sure you belong here? This isn't exactly a place for casual hikers, after all." Elena met his eyes with a calm gaze, though she could feel her heart pounding under his scrutiny. "I have a reservation," she replied, keeping her voice steady and polite. "Hayes is the name." Nigel maintained his placid smile, yet there was a sharpness to it, as though honed by a lifetime of silently dismissing those he deemed unworthy. "Ah, I see," he said, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "Well, I'll have to verify your arrival. In the meantime, you can wait over there." He gestured dismissively towards a small corner cluttered with worn-out chairs, far removed from the plush sofas where other guests lounged. A bemused chuckle rippled through the crowd as onlookers turned back to Elena. A few patrons pulled out their phones, amused by the spectacle unfolding. "Is she serious?" a woman whispered to her friend, both of them elegantly draped in designer wear. "Imagine thinking you could just wander in from climbing and find yourself VIP access." Elena felt the heat rise to her cheeks as she moved to the deserted corner, clutching the straps of her backpack like a lifeline. The embarrassment was a hot, lancing sensation, urging her to turn and walk away, yet an unfamiliar steely resolve kept her feet planted. She perched on the edge of one of the chairs, its upholstery distinctly worn and forgotten, much like the way she felt in that moment. A waiter approached, offering her a glass of cold water, a stark contrast to the crystal flutes of champagne that seemed to flow so freely among the other guests. "Here you go," he murmured, not unkindly, but there was pity in his eyes that made Elena's discomfort deepen. All around her, conversations resumed, punctuated by stolen glances in her direction. She scrolled through her phone, striving to maintain an air of nonchalance, but her hands trembled, betraying the turmoil that churned within. She dared not look around, aware of the cameras still subtly pointed her way, capturing what they assumed was a moment of unwitting folly. Her thoughts drifted to how she'd ended up here, how a spontaneous decision after a lengthy hike on the nearby trails had brought her into this opulent den of judgment. She had wanted a moment of reprieve, to bask in luxury briefly before continuing her journey, but now the plan seemed naive at best. Nigel, confident in the correctness of his actions, returned to his desk, his spine straight with a sense of victory. He surveyed his domain, content in the knowledge that he had championed the preservation of exclusivity. Unbeknownst to him, his reticent smile was the subject of quiet smug admiration from fellow staff who believed, much like he did, in maintaining a separation from those who did not conform to the lodge's standards. Minutes trickled by, each one feeling like an eternity for Elena, who breathed deeply, contemplating her next move. She could feel their eyes, a collection of strangers apparently united by a shared disdain. Her resolve flickered, her internal dialogue a silent scream fighting back against the unfairness of it all. Yet, just as the tide of whispers seemed to crest, a sudden commotion outside drew everyone's attention. The soft whirring sound grew louder, vibrating through the glass walls, a helicopter descending onto the lodge's private helipad. Heads turned, conversations stuttering to a halt, curious eyes peering towards the grand windows. Elena picked her head up as well, curiosity interspersed with the buzz of an unfamiliar sensation, hope. Was this distraction enough to give her some reprieve, a chance to slip away unnoticed? But it soon became clear that the event outside was a magnet, drawing everyone's gaze, their mocking interest temporarily averted. The helicopter's rotors slowed, and a sharply dressed pilot emerged, quickly followed by a poised woman with a purposeful stride. Their attire screamed professionalism and precision, reflecting the importance of their mission. The pilot maintained a crisp salute, surveying the faces inside as though memorizing them, while the assistant, clutching an elegant leather folder, marched determinedly into the lodge, eyes scanning the room with intent. Elena's solitude shattered. Suddenly, she was the epicenter of newfound attention, an object of intrigue. Her heart thundered louder with each step the assistants took in her direction. "Elena Hayes," the assistant called out, authority and respect coloring her voice, slicing through the ambient noise like a knife through silk. "Apologies for the delay, Miss Hayes. We're here to escort you." Silence. Pure, suffocating silence engulfed the grand lounge, every gaze magnetized towards Elena in disbelief. The weight of their stares shifted abruptly from condescension to bewilderment and, finally, the onset of realization. Even Nigel, his smug mask of assurance vanished, stood frozen at his desk, the situation spiraling beyond his grasp. Elena rose slowly, her eyes holding the assistants with gratitude. The corners of her lips curled into a gentle smile, equal parts relief and affirmation. She felt a release in her chest, a budding vindication. It was a moment of reclaiming her dignity amidst the shambles of a moment that hadn't gone as planned yet offered a profound, unexpected twist. Around the room, the smartphones had been lowered in a collective gasp, the mood shifting as whispers started to spread once more, now colored by tones of astonishment rather than mockery. Those who had delighted in her perceived disgrace now struggled to meet her eyes, their embarrassment plain as they fumbled for words or simply turned their backs, eager to distance themselves from their earlier behavior. "I believe," Elena said, her voice clear and resonant, "that my reservation ought to be under a rather different set of circumstances. And I would appreciate a more suitable welcome this time." The strength in her voice was only surpassed by the grace with which she accepted this newfound recognition. As the lounge settled uneasily into the aftermath of disbelief, Nigel Carter found himself a prisoner in his own immaculate bubble of pride and authority. From the moment he had deemed Elena unworthy of the VIP Mountain Lodge's refined atmosphere, he had felt justified, protective even. It was his duty, after all, to maintain the aura of exclusivity. To him, ensuring that no impostors marred the carefully curated image of affluence and elegance was not just a task, but a calling. Yet now, with the revelation of Elena's true significance, his convictions felt more like shackles than shields. The bubble that held him aloft in the echelons of the lodge's elite staff was deflating, and shame seeped through the cracks. While Nigel grappled with his introspection, the lodge began to tremor with returning life. The stunned silence unraveled into a symphony of renewed conversations, this time brimming with speculation and curiosity regarding Elena's arrival. An undercurrent of guilt mingled with the exchanges, as many patrons who had only moments ago delighted in her apparent downfall now sought to piece together her ascending intrigue. Away from the epicenter, Elena stood with the dignified recognition now thrust upon her, clutching her backpack not with the desperation of earlier, but with a relaxed confidence. Her turbulent emotions were tempered by an undercurrent of satisfaction, a validation, albeit unintended, which fortified her quiet resolve. The assistant led her with deference towards a seating area of plush, regal indulgence, prominently situated and striking in its inviting grandeur. Settling into warmth that both softened her weariness and reflected her newfound authority, she allowed herself a brief exhale of tension. But even as she relaxed, she felt a bittersweet sting from the silent conclusion of those protracted minutes in the corner. Wounds of judgment took longer to heal than wounds of the flesh. Unseen by most, Nigel lingered near the edge of the lounge's grandeur, observing with a shrouded face. The rhythm of his composure was painfully offbeat. He watched as the pilot and assistant continued their measured exchange with Elena, detailing plans with respect reserved for high influence. They extolled arrangements tailored precisely to her preferences, details no longer abstract but meticulously executed. From her place of prominence, Elena observed a world transformed by circumstance. She noticed the cautious glances cast her way, now mingled with apologetic smiles and furtive waves, signs of respect earned through revelation rather than recognition. Her gaze swept over guests who hurriedly altered histrionics into faintly repentant gestures. She nods lightly, acknowledging those scurrying apologies, though their import barely brushed her consciousness. Her mind wandered over unexpectedly significant anecdotes, decisions not of title, but of resilience. As patrons artfully rearranged their perceptions, the concierge indulged a desperate inner monologue. Nigel's professionalism, his supposedly unassailable judgment, now wilted before the truth of his error. Memories of his decisive smirk haunted him, the tawdry satisfaction when he sent Elena to her corner, convinced of his victory. That satisfaction was a weight he now bore, futilely reshaping plans for atonement that interwove anxiety with implementations of humility. Inside Elena, emotions coursed with uneven intensity. As she waited for the next act of this unscripted drama to unfold, inklings of displacement morphed into precursors of a poised resolution she had long adopted in other realms. The anomaly of appearances was merely context, true belonging emanated long before the helicopter revealed itself. The assistant brought forth a small parcel, its packaging understated yet significant in symbolism. She opened it to reveal a rare blend of specialty teas selected from Elena's travels, a gesture made public, resonant with personal nuance and hospitality-born gesture. Spectators observed this quiet homage, sensing its depth not from description but from how Elena cherished it, imparting her narrative unbroken. Witnessing these exchanges, Nigel felt the uprooting abyss of unresolved consequence. The specters of pointed laughter, unbearably acute, haunted his introspective apologies. As Nigel navigated the remaining spectrums of post-revelation analytics, weighted between culpability and defensiveness, his internal dialogue evolved. Elena reciprocated the assistant's professionalism, her authentic smile further captivating the attentive crowd. Guests who murmured unkindly now whispered admiration, acknowledging not just her status, but the merit of her genuine demeanor. Watching this restoration, albeit from a more peripheral vantage, Nigel understood this lesson with unsettling clarity, a honing of inner landscape more crucial than any external guise. As the lounge's grand narrative twisted elegantly towards reconciliation, atmosphere warmed with nascent admiration. Patrons basked anew in Elena's presence, not as an oddity obscured by surface assumptions, but as a vignette unveiling profound respect among the privileged ranks. The error that was formed, a bridge they now crossed, attempting renewal in words where actions had once failed. For Elena, redemption was secondary in resonance. Her initial comfort in casting off veneers of affluence validated her endeavor. The helicopter's entrance was fortuitous culmination yet paled against the vigor stirred within, a simple testament to identity unpaired with opulent label, unseen by the casual observer yet abundant in its power of presence. As the sun inclined towards the horizon, golden hues bathing the lodge in renewed warmth, Elena, escorted with respect and aspiration alike, posed a canvas onto which brilliance confluenced. Mirroring these golden arcs, subdued yet radiantly influential, she absorbed the collective conscience arched towards her resolve, an embodiment of underlying grace writ monumental amidst nature's harmonizing symphony. Even as whispers of gossip swirled into murmurations of admiration, the atmosphere was undeniably altered. From the churning heart of the mountain estate emerged a fresh appreciation, a harmonious shift born through candid revelation that wound echoes of understanding around the pillars of its legacy. Elena's presence in the previously judgmental lounge was now enveloped by a cloak of both respect and intrigue. The lodge's luxurious air had shifted palpably, echoed in the softened glances of those who had once derided her. Now, she was on the threshold of another revelation, a moment to further bridge her reality with the preconceptions which had previously eclipsed it. The moment unfolded seamlessly as the assistant, recognizing the necessity for setting the record straight, gently motioned Elena forward from the lounge's spotlight. As patrons watched with rapt curiosity, she approached a small elevated stage often reserved for special announcements or prestigious events. Her steps were measured, deliberate not out of hesitance, but from a deeper calling to assert her truest vision creatively imprinted here, the uplifting spirit of the mountain lodge she had so thoughtfully fostered. With a quiet yet firm resolve, Elena stepped forward under a halo of soft light. The assistant, while maintaining a deferential stance nearby, addressed the captive audience with calm, measured authority. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice clear amidst the heightened silence, "it is both an honor and privilege to introduce Elena Hayes, not merely as a guest but as the primary benefactor behind the creation and sustenance of the VIP Mountain Lodge. Her vision and investment have helped bring to life the opulent comforts you experience today." Eyes widened in astonishment, followed by an intake of breath that swept through the room like a wave. Every listener grappled with the weight of this new dimension, comprehending the remarkable repudiation of earlier assumptions. The guests were transfixed, processing a metamorphosis from dismissive incredulity to genuine admiration. Nigel, rooted to his vantage point, felt dual tides of panic and mortification ensue. His earlier predisposition, of whom Elena was a vagabond at best, now clashed harshly against this revelation. He could scarcely mask his incredulity, even as he strained to run protocols of insight through the muddled pathways dividing prejudgment from truth. The assistant continued, unfazed by the ripple of revelation tightening through the gathering. Beyond her role as an investor, Elena is an ardent advocate for bridging luxury with inclusivity, an ethos that extends itself here, in this beautiful retreat among the serene wilderness. Elena's heart resonated with the weight of truth. She allowed herself a moment to absorb the ambient energy, a tangible kinetic tapestry woven by facts emerging into reality. Her choice of attire, once a stumbling block to esteem, was now emblematic of her personal creed: authenticity prioritized over ostentation, utility in place of affectation. More than appearance, it was a testament to journeys, a vow to honor journeys, as catalysts for evolving life. The room hung eagerly on her silence, intuiting an approaching grace found in poised declaration. Elena regarded the assembly with a gentle, steady gaze. "Thank you," she began, her voice carrying a quiet strength. "For those of you unaware, I chose this lodge's concept not merely for excess, but for inclusion. I've always believed that embracing opulence doesn't necessitate belittling earnest exploration, a harmony between reverence for nature and the comforts of luxury." Guests leaned in, the whispers now transmuted into thoughtful contemplation. Many had felt an undercurrent of privilege defined solely by contrast against outsiders. Yet, under Elena's narrative, they felt aspirations spoken plainly, unfurling a warmth towards seamless integration beyond mere aesthetics. Even now, she shared her vision with unpretentious honesty. Elena continued, her words carried both clarity and warmth. "I may dress for the trail more often than for galas, yet in this place, I sought to create a refuge, a space where the luxury we enjoy today connects with the wilderness we often yearn for." As her voice carried through the expanse, ripples of acknowledgement bloomed throughout the chamber. Patrons who had earlier distanced themselves from her now found themselves drawn forward, expressions softened by revelation. Others, caught in the glow of this new understanding, gently nodded, reassessing perceptions flung prematurely. The assistant took cues from the crowd, facilitating Elena's exit from the spotlight, a tilt of her head endorsing the dignified interactions gestating between guests. One by one, and then in collection, faces brightened with an era of camaraderie begun through knowledge. Elena's radiant disposition had ignited a series of impressions beyond brief intervals of misunderstanding. With the tableau cleared and reality reshaped, Nigel standing pocketed a Hessian sack of misgivings. Anxiety shadowed his every thought, the acknowledgement of judgment misjudged overtook any attempt to equilibrate professional detachment with apology. As the minutes ebbed away, so too did his composure fragment under stress lines of unease. Yet, amid reflections cast by this emerging paradigm, the summit's sanctum assumed a new vibrancy. Guests sent forth honest admiration drawn from unseen truths, echoed kindly by the lodge's tranquil breathing, a respite in full circle, kindred to the shared history of understanding now adjusted. Under gentle illumination, Elena cast a final glance back, beholding the endeavors designed from shadows and visibility alike, the privileged not in garments arrayed, but found resonant in poised appreciation. Her footsteps sounded notes of affirmation under quiet metamorphic applause. The echoes of her journey, once understated among voices muted by judgment, now traversed anew toward horizons imagined. Leaving behind her transient milestone in this lodge of brilliance and belonging, Elena emerged into evanescent daylight, framed by natural beauty and earthly treasures subtending above. The air pulsed richly as calibrated understanding, underscoring each step with the unfettered certainty of serenity achieved among fluctuating dynamics and judgment redeemed. As the soft murmur of conversations resumed in the lounge, the atmosphere buzzed with newfound respect and admiration for Elena Hayes. Her unveiling as the lodge's principal benefactor had cast her in a light that transcended appearances, reshaping perceptions in profound ways. The significance of her contribution, and her vision, now settled over guests like a shroud of warmth, dispelling previous misconceptions born of hasty judgments. Elena, having stepped out from the immediate limelight, now exchanged quiet, gracious conversations with those who approached, their gestures markedly more deferential. They asked about her travels, her inspirations for the lodge, and she responded with genuine enthusiasm, her passion for blending luxury with nature touching on a chord deeply felt yet often unspoken among them. Her husband, Mark Hayes, joined her shortly, his presence a blend of supportive pride and an unshakable calm that complemented Elena's serene aura. He navigated the guests with practiced ease, fielding questions and steering conversations with a diplomatic charm that solidified their united front. When he addressed the lounge, his voice carried the same resolute clarity. "I must acknowledge," Mark began, his tone both firm and understanding, "that the incident earlier today was unfortunate and not reflective of the values we hold dear. As a symbol of our commitment to fostering an inclusive atmosphere, we will be taking steps to ensure such judgments do not lead to exclusion or unwarranted assumptions at any of our venues." Nigel, stationed toward the rear of the room, watched the scene unfold with a heart burdened by guilt. The sting of his actions, and their repercussions, had woven themselves into his demeanor since Elena's truth had unfurled before him. Anxiety had crystallized into a cold knot in his chest, as he absorbed the gravity of Mark Hayes' statement. It was a polite yet clear directive of expectation, and perhaps, consequence. The guests surrounding Elena acknowledged Mark's words with supportive nods. They understood the importance of what had transpired and, for many, it marked a reconsideration of their own prejudices. As time moved on, chatter slowly evolved, echoing sentiments of admiration for Elena's humility blended seamlessly with her vast accomplishments. The aftermath led to tangible shifts within the lodge. Conversations between guests were more open, less guarded, shared laughter presided over exchanges newfound by equitable approval rather than social hegemony. Meanwhile, the staff at the lodge, inspired by Elena's demeanor and the ensuing realizations among the patrons, approached their roles with renewed commitment to a standard that balanced service with respectful acceptance. As the evening gave way to the golden hues of sunset, casting an ethereal glow through the expansive glass windows, Elena found herself by a grand fireplace. The reflective warmth mirrored her internal peace, a culmination of unforeseen revelation reborn into change. Nigel, driven by an uncomfortable yet necessary resolve, finally approached her. The gravity of his earlier dismissal hung heavily upon him, manifesting in a delivery laden with genuine repentance when he spoke. "Miss Hayes," he began, eyes cast down momentarily before finding hers, "I want to express my deepest apologies for my earlier assumptions. I shouldn't have judged you based on mere appearances. I realize now how completely wrong that was." Elena regarded him with a gentle, contemplative gaze, her earlier grievances overshadowed by an understanding matured from such moments. She knew that change, though sparked by profound realizations, began with acknowledgement. "Thank you for your apology, Nigel," she replied with composed empathy. "It's important that we learn from these experiences, creating an environment that truly reflects the values we aim to champion." Her words impacted Nigel deeply, a quiet mentor not of chastisement but of growth. He nodded solemnly, an acknowledgement not only of his folly but of the path that stretched before him, one paved with redefined principles. As they parted, Nigel quietly resolved to initiate and engage in refining the lodge's training programs, ensuring future interactions mirrored not his past errors but the ethos he'd come to embrace through this experience. The evening unfolded into a tableau of relaxed enjoyment and conversation, transformed by an underlying unity forged through shared humanity. Guests mingled with genuine camaraderie, reminiscing their initial judgments with dawning self-awareness and pledging allegiance to indelible lessons learned. In the final scene, Elena and Mark prepared to depart, their demeanor unchanging yet deeply intertwined with the lodge's enkindled spirit. Her name, once whispered with misplaced fervor, now resonated as a beacon illuminating mutual acceptance and newfound understanding. As they made their way toward the helicopter awaiting them, a hush followed their steps, a powerful silence imbued with respect rather than judgment. The guests watched, reflective and inspired, bearing witness to the couple whose quiet potency had incarnated change within these walls. Elena's steps mirrored a purposeful cadence, the mountain serene under the waning light, signifying life's harmonic grandeur when authenticity meets opportunity. In a world oftentimes defined by surface, she had left behind a legacy that went deeper, a narrative of dignity that reshaped perspectives and enriched experiences, granting a vivid awareness of what it means to grace a life lived openly and without facade. With a final glance back at the lodge, now a space transformed through humility and hope, Elena ascended the helicopter stairs beside her husband, an emblem of empowerment carried forth, resonating into the horizon, while the mountaintop continued to stand, forever touched by the truths unveiled that day.